They say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The first step in the road to Atlanta began last week with the wild card round, with 8 teams entering the arena, with only 4 emerging as victors. Now they take their next step to the divisional round weekend. Will they continue on the path to Vincent Lombardi's trophy, or does the journey end here? We're going to get into the divisional round and so much more. Welcome to the divisional round edition of the Blitz Zone. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Rosen. I'm coming to you live from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York. And tonight we have a lot to discuss. So we're entering the second weekend. We started with 12 teams. The Colts basically came out with a big first half and were able to just hold off the Texans in the second half to emerge victorious. Now they're going to be playing the Chiefs this weekend. And, of course, we're going to talk about the other 3. But let's start, of course, with the coaching carousel. Before the playoffs began, there were 8 vacancies. 7 of them have been filled. You're going to have to guess which one hasn't been filled yet. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Now on their 3rd coach in as many years. They just hired from Texas Tech, formerly of Texas Tech, was going to be the offensive coordinator for the USC Trojans. Now heading to the desert. Cliff Kingsbury, however he likes to pronounce his last name. The guy who looks like Ryan Gosling's twin brother. That's right, folks. He's headed to the Arizona Cardinals on a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. The reason they brought him in, he's also regarded as a guy who works very well with quarterbacks. You've seen the work he's done with Patrick Mahomes, who this past year for the Chiefs had 50 touchdowns. Case Keenum, who nearly led the Vikings last year to the Super Bowl, unfortunately losing to the Eagles in the NFC title game, and this year didn't have so much success with the Denver Broncos on the first of his 2-year contract. Davis Webb, who right now is basically going to be relegated to probably being a backup for a future team because I don't think he's going to be with the Jets next year. Nick Shimonik with the Chargers, and former first-round pick Johnny Manziel, who at one point was the future quarterback for the Browns, and of course his stupid shenanigans and his personality issues landed him out of the league, and then eventually he got back when he turned his life around somewhat, and he's in the CFL. Maybe one day he'll make a return to the NFL, or maybe with the new league, the Alliance of American Football. He's going to be paired with Josh Rosen, who I know that last name sounds familiar, is not my cousin, was the 10th overall pick in the 2018 draft out of UCLA this past season. He had 4 of the 10 worst total quarterback ratings in 2018. He had 2,278 yards, 11 touchdowns to 14 picks on the season, completed about 55.2% of his passes. And the thing was, with Cliff Kingsbury, his offenses in college were 4th in offensive efficiency when he was with Texas Tech in 2 full seasons, and especially 2 full seasons with Patrick Mahomes as a starter. He was so good, Mahomes, that the Chiefs traded up in the 2017 NFL draft just to get him, and it's paid off dividends for 2018. And he's now the first coach since 2014 to go from college to the NFL. That's right. The last time was Bill O'Brien, who at the time was with the Penn State Nittany Lions, then eventually went on to coach the Houston Texans. And this past year, O'Brien led the Texans to their 5th franchise division title. Unfortunately, they lost this past weekend to the Colts, 21-7. But we'll get into the particulars of that in a bit. First 3 years in the NFL, he was with the Patriots, the Saints, and even with a cup of coffee with the Jets from 03 to 05. Then he went to the CFL in 06 and 07. Then he became a coach in 08 at the University of Houston, and then eventually landed a dream job at Texas Tech as the head coach after being an offensive coordinator. And now he was given at first, USC didn't even want to give him permission to actually interview for any job. Because he was supposed to be the new offensive coordinator for the organization after he was fired November 25th by Texas Tech. But He wanted to see what was out there in the NFL, and eventually he landed with the Cardinals. He's got David Johnson. He's got a good running back who maybe he can revive his career and have that season, bring back the season that David Johnson had in 2016, not what he had in 2017. Let's hope that, who knows, if Larry Fitzgerald will come back for another season. I doubt it, but you know what? It would be nice to see Larry Fitzgerald in a Cardinals uniform for Cliff Kingsbury. Maybe give him the lay of the land a little bit, since, of all people, Larry Fitzgerald has been through many head coaches, coordinators, players, and quarterbacks. He knows the organization inside and out. So I would think he would be a good wealth of information for Cliff. But at the end of the day, Cliff is going to do what Cliff is going to do. It's his team. He's the coach. All the best of luck to you, Cliff. The fact is, Steve Wilkes was 3-13 after 1 year, one of the worst records I think the worst record in the entire history of the franchise. And you're going all the way back to when they were in Chicago, one of the worst home records. And 2 of their wins were against the 49ers. That's it. And the other one was the first time since Truman was president. That's all I have to say about this year's Cardinals. Good luck to Cliff. Now, for the Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur, who just did a 1-year stint as the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans with Mike Vrabel in his first year as head coach, now decides to go to be the head coach himself. Well, got hired by the Green Bay Packers, which is unbelievable. There were 10 candidates interviewing for this job, including interim head coach Joe Philbin, who's going to remain with the organization, probably as the offensive coordinator, and he's going to retain Mike Pettin as well as the defensive coordinator after 1 season with Mike McCarthy. So this past season. And he replaces a guy, legendary coach in 13 years in the organization, 10 postseason appearances, I believe it was 5 title appearances in the NFC title game, and on top of which a Super Bowl appearance, a Super Bowl victory, not just an appearance, a victory, Super Bowl 45 in Dallas against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was their 5th franchise championship. Actually, their 5th franchise, or their 4th franchise title. But the fact is, he led them to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, this past year, they went 6-9-0. He was fired with just weeks to go in the season. And, with 4 games left in the season, he was fired. And I don't think it was right that they did that way. Honestly, with what McCarthy has done for the organization, he should have at least been given the consideration to let him coach the rest of the season, let it play out. But him and Aaron Rodgers were probably at each other's throats and didn't get along, and I think the Packers are going to side with Rodgers. They gave him a truckload of money this past year. He's the franchise. He's the guy that Matt LaFleur, he's the guy. He's the quarterback of the future for the Packers. So Matt LaFleur has to come and revitalize his career, on top of which he needs him and the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, have to basically bring in some weapons on the offense, especially some more running backs, some more receivers besides Devontae Adams, and they sure as hell need to beef up the defense. Clay Matthews is getting up there in age. They need to find the future replacement for him, and they have to retool the secondary. It's a reclamation project for Matt LaFleur. Good luck to you with that 4-year contract. It's going to be a heck of a rebuild. Denver finally zeroed in on their head coach. Well, they were down to 2 coaches. Mike Munchak, the offensive coordinator or offensive line coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their eventual hire, Vic Fangio, at the age of 60, in his first stint as a head coach. All of his career, if you look at the past, all but one of his past 33 years as an NFL assistant, now he's going to be a head coach for the first time ever in his entire life. He's the 4th oldest person in NFL history to get his first coaching gig. Behind Rod Rust, who was hired by the Patriots in 90, won 15 with them that year. Bud Wilkinson, who with the 78 Cardinals, 6-10 that year. And Dick LeBeau at the age of 64 with the 0-1 Bengals, who went 6-10. Will he do better, over 500 maybe this year for the Broncos, considering they had back-to-back 5-11 seasons? He had losing seasons, double-digit losing seasons for the first time since the 1960s. First time they had consecutive losing seasons since 1971-72. In the past few years with Vance Joseph, it just was not working out. And we all knew this was the year that Vance Joseph had to do something. Otherwise, that was it for him in Denver. And he is highly respected amongst players, coaches around the league. His defense finished 13th in 2017. Number one defense in total takeaways with 36. Points per game, 17.7. Illustrated, even with the loss in the wild card round, the team only gave up 16 points to the Eagles. Number one scoring defense. And one of the top 10 defenses in yards per game, in total yards per game, off passing yards and rushing yards. And the fact that he worked well with Khalil Mack, and now he's got a plethora of weapons to work with. Chris Harris Jr., hopefully he returns healthy this year in the secondary. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, both combined for over 20 sacks on the season. Bradley Chubb, probably definitely one of the Rookie of the Year candidates for sure. It's the offense that needs a lot of retooling. They need a quarterback. I think, honestly, Joe Flacco and Vic Fangio could work very well together. They need to bring an offense coordinator in. Originally, we were hearing Gary Kubiak, who has ties, of course, being the backup to the president of the organization, John Elway, for years, back in the early heydays in the 90s with the Broncos. Now that Elway's president, so him and Kubiak go way back. In fact, Kubiak at one point was a coach for the Broncos. Had to leave due to health reasons. We were hearing that he was going to be the OC, but now we're hearing that's not going to be the case, considering that he still probably has those health issues, so there's no way that's going to take place. We were hearing Todd Bowles being considered for the defensive coordinator position, but he left to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Bruce Arians, which I'll talk about in a bit. Now, as for the Broncos themselves, this past year, it was just Vance Joseph had some questionable play calling, a lot of second half leads that they couldn't do very well with. The last time they had a decent quarterback was Peyton Manning. Unfortunately, he had a foot injury in 2015, and since his retirement, they've had 4 starting quarterbacks in that time span since Peyton Manning was on the organization. They had 13 rookies though last year. The good thing about the organization, though, they have Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman at running back. Hopefully Philip Lindsay will be able to return from the injury that ended his season. I'm hoping, and not only that, to see Cortland Sutton, very good wide receiver prospect who could be the big, probably the big replacement for Demaryius Thomas. But they need to go out and get another wide receiver. They need a legit tight end. There are a lot of concerns on the offense that need to be fixed. I think some pieces in the defense, but overall, defensively, I think they're taken care of for the most part in some areas. It's just the offense needs a lot more work, and that's where Vic Fangio is going to have to get an offensive coordinator that can work well within the organization. Who knows who's out there for him, but good luck. Now, the Cleveland Browns, a team that went 0-16 in 2017. Second time that's happened since the 2008 Lions. This time, they get 7 victories on the year. Yeah. And 8 victories on the year. And it was 7 victories on the year. With and of all people who came in to replace Hugh Jackson, who was fired after the 1-4 start with Todd Haley, they bring in Greg Williams they promote Greg Williams from defense coordinator to interim head coach. Freddie Hitchens from the coach for the running backs coach or assistant head coach to the offensive coordinator. And this time, after the season ended, and his rapport that he had with Baker Mayfield, especially with the 27 touchdowns, breaking the rookie record, they decided to promote Hitchens from interim offensive coordinator to permanent head coach, and saying "c'est la vie" to Greg Williams, which I think is a mistake right there, because Greg Williams was one of the reasons why this team did well, along with Freddie Hitchens. I think they did Greg Williams a world of wrong, and I hope that he actually gets the job with the Jets. So, because they play the Browns at home this year. Wouldn't it be nice for Greg Williams to teach the Browns a little lesson for letting him go? A little payback, dish best served cold. But, congratulations to Haley, though. Overall, he did get a lot out of Mayfield in that 5 under Kitchens. Yeah, 5 and I called him Kitchens. Anyway, 5-3, 68.4 percentage completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year. Considering if you look at the first 8 weeks to the last, 9 weeks of the season, a world of difference with Mayfield's stats right here. And you know what? He was a quarterback under Gene Stallings at Alabama. He coached under Bill Parcells and Bruce Arians, and actually with Todd Haley at one point. He worked 11 seasons with the Cardinals, running backs, quarterbacks coach, tight ends coach, before joining the Browns this past year. Let's hope, that he can get this organization back. He helped them end their reign as the bottom dwellers in the AFC North to being in third place. Let's go from third to getting a championship. It's a division title for this organization. Who knows? Maybe Kitchens is the one, the only. Yep, and since he's the 18th head coach in the history of the organization, too, to boot. Good luck to you. Bruce Arians, coming out of retirement, now going to be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, replacing Dirk Cutter after 2 6-10 seasons. He's getting a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. He spent 2018 as an analyst for the NFL on CBS this past year, and it looks like he's going to be back as a head coach, and he's going to be bringing in Todd Bowles to be the defensive coordinator, and which is really something. And I'm happy for because they worked very well together back when Arians and Bowles were together in Arizona. Bowles had one of the best defenses in the league in 2013 and 2014, which catapulted Bowles to be the head coach for the Jets. Hopefully, he would have brought that same type of defensive abilities, which he did in 2015. But then 2016, 2017, and even 18, all went to hell for the Jets. And it was just about high time they moved on from him. Now, as for Bruce Arians with the Buccaneers, he's got Byron Leftwich coming in as an offense. He's going to be one of the hottest prospects for coaches. Look for him in the next few years to be a coaching candidate somewhere, right now. He worked well with the Cardinals last year as an offensive coordinator. He's going to be, I think he's going to do well. And Harold Goodwin was going to be the assistant head coach and run game coordinator as well. So he's bringing in a very good coaching staff. He's got a quarterback to work with in Jameis Winston if the organization decides to bring him back or not. They have a Peyton Barber to work with, but the defense needs a lot of retooling, especially in the secondary. And that's where Todd Bowles is going to come in and really fix the secondary. I think he's a better defensive coordinator than honestly as a head coach. Good luck to Bruce Arians with Tampa. They need a lot of help for sure. Now, we just found out 2 hours before we went on the air, breaking news, of course, the Miami Dolphins in the AFC East have ended their search. When New England's postseason ends, the Miami Dolphins will be hiring within the AFC East linebackers coach and defensive play caller for the New England Patriots, Brian Flores, to be the next head coach for the Miami Dolphins. Congratulations to him. The organization, they were looking for a defensive-minded coach instead of stepping away from the offense that they had with Adam Gase. Adam Gase, unfortunately, was 23-25 in his past 3 years with the organization. They did make a postseason appearance in his first year. Afterwards, missed the postseason in the last 2 seasons, especially in 2018 when Gase was 3-0 to start the year, and they ended up 6-10. So what can you say for the organization? Or actually 7-9, but still they didn't make the playoffs. And Ryan Tannehill, as a starter overall, I don't know if the organization if he wants to work with Ryan Tannehill. I think honestly Flores is going to want a new quarterback. And hopefully him and Ross will not have a tenuous relationship in South Florida. But good luck to you, really. I wish you all the best, Brian, with this organization. They have some pieces in place for the future. So all the best to you. And as for the New York Jets, my squad, we're getting the Miami Dolphins former head coach, Adam Gase, who, for years, before he was even the head coach with the Dolphins, he was known around the leagues as the quarterback whisperer or quarterback guru with a lot of organizations. You look at 2013 with the Denver Broncos. He led Peyton Manning to a 54 touchdown passes season that year. At 55, a record 55 touchdown passes, over 5,200 passing yards that year. Of course, the Broncos ended up losing the Super Bowl that year to the Seattle Seahawks 43-8, but nonetheless, he worked well with him. In fact, it was Peyton Manning who called Chris Johnson, Christopher Johnson, who's actually now the CEO, since Woody Johnson is serving a diplomatic mission for the Trump administration. He stepped down, and Chris Johnson took over as the head of the organization, and he got a call from Peyton Manning this past week with a ringing endorsement for Adam Gase to be the next head coach for the New York Jets. And I guess that was all that was needed to convince Johnson to hire Adam. And he's looking to bring in several players, people like Dowell Loggins to be. I think he's going to be the new offensive coordinator. So that's going to be a change from who we had last. And then defensively, we're hearing talks about Greg Williams being brought in, which I think would be great. Some nastiness up front. I think he'll still be able, and he's got Jamal Adams and Marcus May. If Marcus May is healthy next year, you still got a good safety tandem right there. Need some pieces on the defensive line, but I think they could work well in this system. And Adam Gase and Sam Darnold are going to have I think this could possibly work out. It's early to tell, but I do wish Adam Gase the best of luck. I honestly, like so many Jet fans, we were hoping for Mike McCarthy after he was fired. After all, again, with 132 wins on the year, 37 wins in his career with the Green Bay Packers in 13 years. Postseason appearances, multiple division titles, and a Super Bowl championship. Yes, I know his offense is plain, boring, vanilla, nothing too exciting, especially in this day and age of the NFL, but I would have preferred that vanilla offense, or what he calls coaching, than honestly Adam Gase, if you ask me. Let's see what Adam Gase can do. Let's give him a chance after this 1 year, and if he blows it, then we'll realize we made a big mistake and we should have pulled the trigger on McCarthy, or at least hopefully the front office realizes, but they'll never admit to that. All the best of luck to these head coaches, and the Cincinnati Bengals are still without a head coach to replace Marvin Lewis after 16 faithful seasons with the organization, but yet was 0-7 in the postseason. Need to get a post. Basically, you need to convince the organization that you're going to get a postseason victory, along with fixing something. A lot of fixing the defense. So they got to bring in a defensive coach. I'm thinking Vance Joseph right now. He still does not have a job. He would, I think, be a perfect candidate. Or even Greg Williams should be considered. So if the Jets don't hire Greg Williams to be the DC, which I think they should, I'm hoping the Bengals hire Greg Williams so he can get some revenge on the Browns. There's another way Williams can get some revenge on the Browns, by being the coach of a division rival and then outdoing the Browns. And, who knows? All right, and that's all the news around the league. Oh, and the Steelers are open to trading Antonio Brown. So for teams that need a downtown wide receiving threat, New York Jets per se, definitely look him up and see what. And hopefully, if you do get him, change his attitude and his ego, because I know for New York, now thinking about it, with him in New York, his ego could be even bigger than it already was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I say was because he's not gonna be with the Steelers next year. That is without a doubt. With all the comments he said off the field, the fact that he didn't make the team meeting the Monday after the season ended when they defeated Cincinnati, and yet the Ravens defeated the Browns. After that day, Antonio Brown signaled to the team, I'm done with the organization. I don't want to have anything to do with black and yellow. I want to be somewhere else, and they're going to oblige him somehow. Again, good luck to the team that does get him. Try and change that attitude of his if you can. And whoever gets Le'Veon Bell, the same thing. Try and change his ego as well. Or if you get both of them in a package, good luck. But you might get those killer bees back together. all the best. Hold on one second. Had to close the door. Now, let's recap and let's recap the wild card round, and then we're going to talk their respective divisional round matchups. So let's start with the Indianapolis Colts, the darlings of the NFL this year. Probably one of the great stories of 2018. Besides the resurgence of the Cleveland Browns, besides, some of the great Drew Brees and the Saints, what they've done this year, but the Indianapolis Colts, they were a 1-5 team. The biggest what got them to 1-5, of course, losing to the New York Jets. I was at that game. It was the day of remembrance of the 50th anniversary of the last time the Jets won the Super Bowl, beating the Baltimore Colts 16-7 in Super Bowl III. Joe Namath was the MVP, one of only 3 MVPs never to score a touchdown or have a touchdown at all on offense. All right. Anyway, Colts were 1-5 after that loss. They needed to retool the organization. They needed a new game plan, and they did. And they ripped off 9 victories in their final 10 games, including the biggest one, Week 17, in Music City against Tennessee, the Titans. And they got the much-needed victory to advance to the playoffs for the final final spot in the postseason. Now they're on the road against the Texans. In this previous series, going to this matchup, both teams won on the road. That's right. Houston, in fact, early in the season, defeated Indianapolis 37-34 on a questionable 4th down call by Frank Reich, which, of course, the Colts turned the ball over on downs. Texans were able to go down the field for a few plays, got the game-winning field goal by Kaimi Fairbairn, 37-34. Then the Colts later on went into Houston, won 24-21 on the road. A part of that stretch in which they were winning 9 out of their last 10. Now they face each other in the wild card round. Both teams needing a victory to keep their Super Bowl hopes alive. Let's go to the start of the game, in which, of course, Andrew Luck, who in the regular season meeting had 863 passing yards and 6 touchdowns in these 2 matchups, finds Eric Ebron on a 6-yard pass on the very first drive of the game. Eric Ebron has had 14 touchdowns on the year, 10 of which have been in the red zone. So he's one of the reasons why the Colts did so well down the stretch. Greatest pickup for them. And then on their next one, a 38-yard catch by T.Y. Hilton, who had 63 yards on that second scoring drive of the game. Yeah. And then Houston goes 4th and 4 from the Indianapolis 45 on their second possession. Houston goes for it on 4th and 4 from their own 45 because they're trying to lose, because it's the postseason. Take risks. It doesn't matter. Deshaun Watson throws an interception to Kenny Moore. And then, of course, that was the first time that Deshaun threw a pick since November 18th against the Washington Redskins. So the Colts got to the 17. The Colts get to the Houston 17. Andrew Luck is surveying the field. Unfortunately, his pass gets deflected off of J.J. Watt, who should definitely be a defensive comeback. Who should be a comeback player of the year candidate, along with Andrew Luck, who had 39 touchdowns. He has the most deflected passes in the league, J.J. Watt. He's one of the best at deflecting passes at the line of scrimmage. And that ball, of course, gets into the hands of Brandon Dunn. Texans couldn't move the ball. Of course, the Texans get the ball back. They didn't do anything. They punted the ball back. Then Dontrell Inman gets an 18-yard pass to make it 21-0